think this scene is probably my second favorite scene in season 1. And I think a part of it is because we see each of these characters kind of being their ultimate archetype. We see Mike being the leader. We see Rob being the very devoted one who gets really excited later about the idea of being branded. We see Ben being very eager and yet also timid. And then we see Acantha being charmed yet confused by these guys, and Shay, of course, being very annoyed. One of the things about Shay and Rob, we kind of implied a little bit in the scripts that they had some conflict. They definitely have personalities that really conflict with each other, but they really played this out more in the actual filming, and I really loved that. And so we ended up in the rest in season 2, and also in our plans for a hopeful season 3. We played up that conflict between those two characters a lot more. Part of it is because they both kind of are the sort of archetypes of their respective worlds. I mentioned earlier in my commentary on this season how there are 3 sort of different realms in the story. There is the ordinary world, which Mom is sort of the leader of. There is the dark ideal, which is what these guys are trying to achieve. And we could say that Shay is that character, the kind of leader of that. Or maybe it could be Sherry, but I think it's Shay. And then, of course, Rob is the leader of the other world, which is the ridiculous, this sort of world where they're trying to be the dark ideal, and the conflict and the sort of comparison between those 3 worlds and their differences is where the humor comes from. Now, we only had one camera. We did not have an A and a B. So for this scene, we went through and we filmed it so many different times. Each time, just every single shot you see, we went through the entire scene focusing on, 1 or 2 characters. And Peter, who plays Mike, he asked if we could do his shot last. That way he could practice kind of writing down all those different things on the board and get the timing of when he would cross things off and circle things and whatnot. And so, we did that for sure. One of the things that amuses me is the fact that dinner doesn't get crossed off, even though that's obviously also a terrible idea.
You don't have to get branded if you don't want to. If you're not fully devoted, you can be the drum.
Okay, Cantha.
So once again, it was cold when we were filming this, because we filmed this whole season in the winter. And on this day, so in order to have perfect continuity, Shay's character should have been wearing that same sort of fishnet thing that she was wearing a second ago. But Rachel asked, she was like, "Hey, can I wear jeans instead? I'm really cold." And I was like, "Yeah, sure." Maybe we could say that Shay was also cold and decided to change to be more comfortable. You can see sometimes when Peter's hood flies up in the wind, you'll catch a little bit of a scarf that he's wearing underneath there. And people would often throw on blankets and coats in between takes on these really cold days.
Sacrificial victims.
Where's that Care Bear, Mike?
No Care Bear this time. This time we got a rotisserie chicken.
What about the blood?
We'll cover it in barbecue sauce first.
Oh, yeah. Cthulhu will never notice.
And see, this is another one of those examples of the conflict between the 2 worlds, with Shay being most annoyed because she is, again, that leader of the dark ideal. So that's part of why I would put her in that role. And this part with the barbecue sauce, it was pretty awkward, I think, for those guys. Dax was just like, how long do I keep rubbing this on his face? It was a little long. I think it just doesn't look anywhere near as weird on camera, but to just still be there, still rubbing it on his face was probably pretty strange experience for them.
5 feral drummers who are wholly given to whatever barbaric and animalistic impulses are buried in the recesses of all human minds.
Oh, feral drummer. That's me. I love playing.
This one Sky thought was like a mess up take where he tries to reach for him, it doesn't quite catch him. But funny enough, it's often the ones that people think are errors, where they're like, oh no, I messed it up, that I end up choosing because, well, it fits the characters. They're pretty goofy. So this part for where he laid down, I actually, when I was trying to test what would be a good spot, I like laid down on the ground myself first. I'm like, let me make sure there aren't any hard rocks or anything. I think it's good to not get out of touch, to kind of have an understanding of what it is that you're asking someone to do, to make sure you're not asking them to do something super unreasonable, something that you wouldn't ever do yourself. I mean, within reason. There's a point where that doesn't make any sense. It's a principle that I guess applies to any leadership position, really. Just another way of saying, don't be a tyrant or a dick. Even for tiny little things like, I'm going to have you lay down on this ground. Sometimes, I want to go ahead and do that myself if I can.